Добрий
Good afternoon, my name is Ola Tamanova and I want to thank everybody who joins us in Ukraine Media Center Ukrinform. Today is day 530 of the full-scale invasion of our homeland by Russian aggressor, and I traditionally want to thank all the mass media who tell the world the truth about this war and our heroic resistance. Now we will be talking about the situation in the Black Sea. Joining us online is Dmytro Pletenchuk, the spokesman for the Ukrainian Navy. Good afternoon, Mr. Dmytro. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everybody in the studio. Good afternoon, Mr. Dmytro. Let's start with the current situation in the Black Sea and the Sea of Azov. Many experts lately say that the situation with the disposition of forces has changed in the Black Sea. Can you give us more detail about that? Well, you see, there is intensification of activity of Russian border guard service. We were observing the work of 1 to 3 vessels in the area of Kerch. Now they increased their forces up to 14 vessels. Now there are 7 caters of border guard service in the sea, plus 7 more ships. They try to do everything to block and to ensure the security, as they think, of the Strait of Kerch. That's regarding the situation in that area. Talking about the situation in the open sea, we see the reduction of the number of enemy ships down to 4 in the Black Sea, plus 1 in the Sea of Azov. We don't observe any missile carriers. They should be staying in the ports, but they cannot be observed in the open sea. Also, I would like to remind that in the Strait of Kerch, all the vessels which stay there, they stay there in violation of the warning given by Ukraine on the 20th of June this year as to the danger of navigation in the Strait of Kerch. As a consequence, you've seen the incident that happened to the Olenikorski Gornyak vessel, and we think it's the consequence of violation of the warning. At the same time, I want to remind that the Navy declares that they have nothing to do with this incident. Mr. Dmytro, such a concentration of enemy ships in the sea, does it tell us about intensification of the missile threat for all of us? For the time being, I cannot confirm this information because, again, there are no sea platforms capable of launching missiles to be observed in the sea. What's going on in the occupied territory of Ukrainian Crimea, where the carriers of Bal and Bastion missiles are located, they can be observed in the land but not in the sea. Also, the port of Sevastopol has lost its attractiveness to the Black Sea fleet. They keep away from that area. They stay in the northeastern part of the Black Sea, where the Russians have 2 naval bases. It's Sevastopol and Novorossiysk. You've mentioned Olenikorski Gornyak, the Russian marine ship that was severely damaged. Do we know anything about its fate? Is it coming back to its base? Well, I'm not so confident that it comes back to its base because it was based in the Northern Fleet previously, so I don't really believe it comes back. And the story of this vessel is quite demonstrative. I'm reminding you, it was brought to the Black Sea before the beginning of the full-scale invasion for marine operations in the southern shores of Ukraine. Some of those marine ships could be seen even from Odessa. But after the Navy took control of the equator of 25,000 square meters, the enemy cannot do anything with those ships other than using them as ferries to transport the cargo across the Strait of Kerch. And these guests from the north ended up in a condition which renders it incapable of continuing any operations. We know that previously the enemy was using the tactics of taking their military ships covered with the civilian vessels. Is this practice still in place? Yes, the enemy keeps violating all the requirements to the maritime operations. I mean, when they use the civilian vessels to continue pillaging the occupied territory through the port of Berdansk, port of Mariupol. So, yes, the violation of maritime security is exercised by Russian Federation on a continuous basis. Mr. Dmytro, another question is about the grain corridor. We know that the representatives of our government, they try to resume its operation in all levels. They try to resume the operation of the grain deal. Is it possible in view of the current security situation? Well, I would start first with reviewing the way it used to operate. I mean, within the last couple of months, it was performed by the Russian party in a way that we couldn't say it was operating properly. The Russian team that was included in the inspection team was delaying the operation of the grain corridor to the largest extent possible, and its capacity was up to 10 vessels per day, which is a very small number given the amount of products to be exported from Ukraine. And again, the seaways are the most important export way for Ukraine, which accounted for 90% of Ukrainian exports. So yes, the operation of this corridor was very complicated by activities of Russians, so it raises a lot of questions as to the needs for the existence of this corridor. So this is the situation we're having now. Thank you very much, dear colleagues. Do we have any questions on the floor? Good afternoon, Yulia Gadina, Ukrinform. I'm having two questions to you. The first question is regarding the warning issued on the 4th of August, in accordance to which the equatory of the Russian seaports are such that end up under the military threat. Did it influence maritime traffic? Well, as we see, I can say that Ukraine is a civilized country, so we take care of the security of the civilian vessels, and we cannot help but warning the civilian crews about the danger of maritime operations in that area. And such warnings were announced by Russian Federation even before the full-scale invasion, covering large areas of the Black Sea in the northwestern part of the Black Sea. I mean, near the territorial waters of Ukraine. So we may say that such warnings are mirrored to a certain extent. Thank you very much. And another question, if I'm allowed. The number of explosions in Crimea increased lately. According to your information, did the amount of ammunition decrease in Russian stores, ammunition silos, and may it result in reduction of number of strikes from the occupied Crimea? Yes, yes, and yes. Well, what can we say? It's quite logical that sometimes we may damage the logistics of occupiers in the territory of temporarily occupied Crimea, because we understand that those are the logistics hubs through which they ensure the operation of their troops in the south of our countries. And it's quite logical, as it was stated by the General Staff, the recent damage of the bridges through Changar were a part of those operations. And can you give us more detail to what extent the ammunition the ammunition silos were reduced. Well, it's difficult to say. We're talking about occupied territory. We don't have comprehensive information, and I don't want to circumvent you. Thank you very much for this broadcast, Mr. Dmytro. Thank you for joining us. I'm reminding you, dear colleagues, joining us was Dmytro Pletenchuk, the spokesperson of the Navy of Ukraine, and we continue working for our victory. Stay tuned, follow our announcements. Our team is working for the schedule for tomorrow, so stay tuned. We want to thank our armed forces and all the security and defense forces, and glory to Ukraine, glory to the heroes.